topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
This is Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. Do you want to live a more fulfilling life? Do you want to live your legacy and achieve your personal, professional, and financial goals? Well, coming up on Divya Parekh's Beyond Confidence, you will hear real stories of leaders, entrepreneurs, and achievers who have stepped into discomfort, shattered their status quo, and are living the life they want. You will learn how relationships are the key to achieving your aspirations and financial goals. Moving your career or business forward does not have to happen at the expense of your personal or family life, or vice versa. Learn more at www.divyaparekh.com, and you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. This is Beyond Confidence, and now here's your host, Divya Parekh.
Good morning, listeners. So I'm going to invite you to think about the last time your life knocked you down. Not just a little, but hard enough that it just took your breath away. And in that moment, you may have fell down, and yet you moved through it. You got back up again. Think about it. And that's the quiet strength that whispers to you, keep going. And that's what emotional resilience is. And that's not something we are born with. It's something that we learn, that we build one choice at a time, one step at a time. And that's what we will be talking about today. So I want to share something very exciting. I have finished my book. Yes, my book on artificial intelligence and how to bring humanity at the intersection of it. Because currently, when we are standing between human beings and AI, there's that intersection and how we can meet each other at that intersection. That's what it's all about. And I'll be keeping you posted about it. So let's jump into it and talk about how can we build that emotional resilience today. Welcome, Paula.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited about being here.
Excited to have you. So Paula, share with us, how did you get into sports?
Well, I'm one of 6 children, and I'm the fourth after 3 brothers. And I was, I think, born an athlete. I don't know if such things happen, but as long as I can remember, I was always playing ball with my brothers, and then I was swimming, and it just seemed that back then we played outside, and I was one of them, and they were very supportive of me being with them and playing. So I think it was a very early thing that I started with my sports.
Oh, that's wonderful. Because sports is something what I find is that it binds people together, regardless wherever you're from. You could have a soccer game going and so many different people and so many different countries. It's just, cheering the same way. It has that common human language. So as you continued growing up, was there a specific sport that held your attention?
Well, the first one that held my attention was swimming. And it was very much so. When I was 10 years old, I went to the swimming pool that was the neighborhood house. It was only in the summer, and I tried out for the swimming team. And I guess I had a pretty fast time, and they took me, and I went on to continue racing. And I don't want to brag about it, but I was the Bronx champion in swimming when I was 11 years old. I set a record.
Go for it.
And it was so funny, it was in the newspaper in New York, and it was it was so rewarding, and I was part of a team. And even one summer, my mother wanted me to go to camp, and I said, no, I want to stay, and I want to swim, and I want to be on the team. And that was really important. And I have to give a shout out to my oldest brother, who would come to watch all my swimming meets. And he'd even bring his dates, because my father was a businessman. He was busy. My mother was busy with 6 kids. So it was wonderful. So that was my first thing. But talk about a little kick in the teeth, overcoming an obstacle. After I won the Bronx Championship, we got a phone call in the house, and I answered it because we had a few phones with 8 people in the house. And they said, "Can we talk to your parents? We're from the Olympic committee," or whatever. My father gets on the phone, and the woman says, "Your daughter won this championship. We'd like her to train for the '64 Olympics." And I'm on the phone listening to this. And he says, "No daughter of mine is going to spend the next 2 years in a swimming pool."
Oh,
that was his response. And then he hung up. And I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And so this was my first athletic hurdle that I had to overcome. Didn't want to watch the Olympics. It was the Tokyo Olympics on the television. And, I was frustrated.
of
But I
course.
did manage later on in 1993 to overcome this feeling like I still have something in myself that I want to achieve. And in Israel, where I'm a dual citizen, they had the first Masters tournaments. And I said, oh, maybe I can be in swimming. And I looked for the starting times, and I found them. I put myself in the middle. Then I trained with the high school team in Rocky Mount, North Carolina. 1 month. I had 1 month to train. And they took me on the team, and I ended up winning 7 medals. I felt like Mark Spitz in the, I won. So it was like the finish of a dream. So this is kind of something, it shows you can do it. If I could do it at 40 something years old, where it started at age 11, but it wasn't something I put in the forefront. It was kind of like always just there. And I thought, when I have an opportunity, I'm going to go after it. And that's what I did. So that was my first sport. Yes.
Yeah, Paula, that's amazing and that is so many times what happens is that we put that timestamp on our dreams, and then that's what kills it. That like, oh, I got to achieve it within this next 1 year, 2 years. What I'm hearing from you is that you did not give up on your dream. What you did was you stuck with it, right? It was there. You just didn't like bury it somewhere like, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to think about it. And as a result, what happened was when you got a chance, you did not put that timestamp on it, and you were able to achieve that. So when you got those medals, how did it feel?
Oh, it was amazing. I mean, it was just, and I was the team and the whole process, and the medals around my neck. And I was thinking, wow, this was like a highlight of my life. It was one of the highlights, but it was just felt like I completed something. The circle was completed, and I'm still swimming to this day and still competing at age 76. I just turned 76 2 days ago.
Oh, happy birthday.
So yes, I think if I can do it, there are ways to do it. That was my first sport, but then I continued with, I was born in the generation where it wasn't, sports were not so accessible for girls as they were for boys, team sports and things like that. The swimming was fine. And then I started just playing tennis on my own. And that became a passion. And like I say, people follow the 3 Ps, purpose, passion, and perseverance. If they do those 3 things, when there's a way, when there's a why, you can find the how.
Yes.
So I think that was the second sport that I excelled in. And actually, just to add a little bit to it, I kept going with my tennis. I was in the tennis team at the University of Florida, and then I went and I became a tennis pro, teaching professional, and I had already, and I was playing competitively too. Anyway, my father and mother came to visit one time when I was competing. They never came to visit, to do anything with my sports. I mean, it didn't matter to me either. And they watched me win singles, doubles, and mixed in New Hampshire. It was the New Hampshire State Championship. And afterwards, my father came up to me and he said, Paul, go find the best coach in the United States and see if you can make it on the tour. Now, then I was 20 already. And I thought, you know what? Okay, this was another thing, maybe he was feeling bad about the swimming. And I went inside afterwards, after I finished, and I had the book of all the tennis pros. This was back in 1970 something. And I had a two-hand forehand because I was fooling with my swing, and I ended up having to use, and I said, who has a two-handed forehand that's a coach? And I said, Pancho Segura. Now, Pancho Segura, you have to be older. I mean, you may know, but I don't know how many of the audience knows who Pancho Segura was, but a very famous tennis pro with a two-handed forehand. So I called him up. I found his phone number and called him myself. And I told him my situation. I was interested in in advancing. I just won the state championship and I was on the team at Florida, this, that, and the other. He said, well, okay, come out to Carlsbad in California. I was in New Hampshire. And and meet me at the tennis court. And I thought, okay. I took the first step, and then I went out there and I met him. He said, play this kid. And I said, okay. So I played this kid and I guess I did okay. And afterwards he said, how about coming to lunch? And he had his daughter there too. We went to lunch. And he said, first question he asked me was how old I was. And he said, look, how do you think you're going to make it on tour when Chris Evert has already won Wimbledon and she was 18? She's 18 and you're 20, whatever. But I like the way you run. And you're the first person that's ever come to me without a connection. And I'll never forget that because he said, and I'll take you on. He said, after I work with Jimmy Connors for a few months, then I will take you on. And then the story goes on. But this is the thing that it always stuck with me is when you make the first step and then you take the second, I made the call myself. And I think a lot of people are afraid. And I think if you have confidence in the way you present yourself and you have a goal in mind, what's the worst thing they can do? Is maybe they could say no, or they could say sorry, but instead with that statement afterwards, it was a pretty amazing, that was something very special.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely intrigued to hear about the rest of the story.
Yeah, the rest of the story. Oh, it gets really, you want to talk about being able to get over obstacles and to really be whole. And this one finishes the tennis story is I ended up trying to go for my dream. And he said I had 3 months. So I was actually working out in San Diego with a famous coach. I don't want to mention names. And he was my coach. He was great. And he was teaching all the, those that went on tour at that time. So I had a few months. But he was very jealous if I played with any men or worked out with, warmed up. Anyway, I went on tour and he came with me and I ended up with a back problem. And we took a little break and I went in a cave. We went to Ruby Falls, Tennessee. And I went in this cave with, it was with a group, and I get down there and what's going on? I felt like, and I'm not wasn't claustrophobic or anything. And I said, I got to get out of here. And I went up and the same thing was going on when I got outside. Outside, I felt like I was closed in. And I thought, what is going on? And I didn't even know the word agoraphobia. But, and then I, ended up, I told Carl, look, I'm going to have to, when we got back to San Diego, I said, look, I'm going to have to go look for a teaching job because I can't go on. I've got to find the answer to what's going on. And I just have to quit this right now. So I took a job. And I took a job at Cherry Hills Country Club in Denver, Colorado. I had information. And then I thought, okay, but Carl said, if I leave him, he's going to kill himself. And I get a call when I'm at Cherry Hills on the phone. My friend called me from San Diego, and she said, "Paul, he killed himself." And this, you talk about having to, like, I've done some amazing things, but I've also had to jump over some incredible hurdles. And so I ended up going to a psychiatrist, going to a psychologist, changed the red light green and this, that, what happened in your childhood? And I had a wonderful
Mhm.
childhood. And finally, I went to the um, uh, to the synagogue, to the temple, and the rabbi was there because I just thought I'd give up. Maybe I'll go to the. And he said, "Listen, Paul, my brother just died jogging with his son, and I had to go see somebody myself. He did, and he said, listen, go to this man, Robert Aldenstein. I'm just giving him a shout out. He saved a lot for me." And when I went to him, he said, "Paul," I said, "I want to fly again. I want to go back on tour. I want to go on the tour to try to. And I was on the Avon Futures. And he said, "What's the worst thing that could happen to you if you fly?"
Mhm.
And I said, "Well, I guess I could die." I actually made a statement. He said, "Well, then go find the shortest flight possible
Mm.
and see if you can do it." So I rented a car, went down to the Broadmoor down in Colorado Springs. They had the Grand Masters playing then in tennis. You talk about something. I said, "I'll go up there in the meantime. I got my flights tomorrow." And the Grandmasters, Beppe Merlo was watching down, watching the courts down where Pancho Gonzalez and Torben Ulrich were playing. And he's talking to me, "Who are you?" I said, "Oh, I play tennis. I'm a tennis pro." And then after everything was over, he called me afterwards and said, "Would you like to go would you like to warm up with us tomorrow? The Grandmasters for our fine. And then they invited me to dinner. And they knew why I was there because Beppe had the same phobia, this Italian grandmaster.
Mm.
So it was incredible. And so then I end up on the same flight as they're taking back. And Torben Ulrich, I'll never forget that man. Anybody who knows tennis, might ring a bell. He took my hand, walked me to the plane. It was like a 10-seater. And we go on the plane and he's calming me down. He's like Mr. Guru, Mr. Buddhist kind of almost guy. Wonderful. Took that flight with them, with all the grandmasters. Then they flew back and I was able to recover from my phobia
Mm.
with the help of the grandmasters tennis players.
Mm.
You never know when you are willing to keep going if you have a goal.
Mm.
And this is where the tennis actually, that's enough of the tennis, but it's more to show people. And I owe a lot to those friends and people that supported me. And, that's one big chapter, and,
Mhm.
and then I have the dual citizenship with Israel, which was the second chapter of my life.
Yeah. So there are a few nuggets that I am getting from here is that keep going and it's okay to ask for help. And you talk about character. So tell us how does building a character plays into all of this?
Well, it's It's something that I think I learned when my father let me go to 2 month summer camp with my brothers. Not let me, I had to go. My mother was having 2 more children, a baby in July, and I was 6 years old. And I learned how to be independent. I learned how to enjoy being, who I was. And I knew my brothers were on the camp too, but not my bunk. And I was 6. And after that experience, I thought, later I was thinking, boy, I learned how to navigate the world. I felt like I was in charge of myself, that not that my parents were constantly hovering over me. We were lucky. We were, at a point where you take your bike and make sure you're home by 6 for dinner and you can go and play. And I think those skills that I learned with the support of maybe the sports helped a lot, that I felt very confident in school, and also connecting on a deeper level with people. This was
Mm.
something I used to love to say. I love to reach below the first level when I meet people.
Mm.
And I think I know from when my children wrote about me when they were 18 and I was starting to write a book about character. And they said we were not hovered over. We were allowed to be independent, and we knew she loved us, and we knew that, but we also knew we could succeed, and we were together as a team, and there was teamwork. And I think people forget about, they think they can't achieves something. And I think us as, let's say, as coaches, sometimes we have to meet the person where they are. And this I've learned through a lot of years, and you know that, and it's like when I teach golf, which I'm a LPGA golf professional, lifetime member. When I teach, I don't assume anything. I don't say the word "it's easy," which I think is a big mistake when someone finds something easy. Oh, it's easy, I'll show you. That word, it doesn't resonate. And I think getting to know people, and I've taught tour players. One made it back on tour after a lesson. And I'm thinking, he said, I understand what you're saying. I could have the best pros in the world teaching me. I'm on the tour and I'm this, and I understand what you're saying. And he had me as his coach after that. And I thought, wow, I've only been teaching for like 1 year, because that's another story how I became a golf professional. And that also was character. And I think when I think back and I say, okay, how do people, why does this happen to me? Why are all these good things happening? And I think, I don't know if I think how I became a golf pro is the one that's in my book, the book, Finding Life's Passion. And I wrote about that. And I think that one sums up the other two. Is I was in Israel. Golda Meir inspired me when in 1970 I went to Israel, and I became a dual citizen at that point in 1970. And I felt like I was part of something greater than myself. And it was the most important lesson I learned. I was first worked in the kitchen, then they put me in the children's house. And when I was there, after working there a long time, I said, when I have kids, I'm going to bring them back to the kibbutz, and so they can be raised in this kind of environment. Or leadership, you can learn to be a leader in a group. And it was something very, very special. And I taught swimming, and I taught them golf under the kibbutz, but it was just a beginning. And then, just to finish the last, which I think is the most interesting one, with how I became a golf pro overnight, I had to go back to the States with my kids. I was divorced and had to go back for the summers. And I stayed because I had a little back issue too. And I was teaching golf. And this is one thing your audience may appreciate, maybe this tip. I was playing and I had a bulging disc. Anybody with a back operation? Okay, I had a bulging disc from my tennis playing days. And they said, just go easy. Well, I went easy, I was at the playing, I was teaching, and then I sneezed. And my back, the disc ruptured, and I fell onto the table. I was upstairs.
Oh.
And I go, oh no. And I could hardly walk. And my brother-in-law, who was a neurologist, he said, Paul, only 1% need a back operation. You probably know him. And he said, but bring me in the x-rays, the MRIs. He said, how'd you get in here? You're the 1%. So I ended up staying in Raleigh, where my ex was in Raleigh, and got a back operation, had a divorce. And after that, and I asked him how long before I can go back to sports. He said, give it 2 weeks at least. And that's all I asked was the swimming. But then I decided to take the kids back to Israel, back to the kibbutz, but I needed a new sport. I didn't have a sport. I taught these things, but I wanted something to play. And the golf course was close by. So I went to the golf course. And I thought, okay, I'm going to learn, maybe I can learn how to play. So the guy standing there, and I said to him, they were playing a pro-am. I didn't know much about golf. And he said, yeah, I told him I'm trying to learn how to play golf. And he said, well, I'm giving a kids clinic right now. He says, if you'd like to come and you can get some pointers. So I went down and he asked me a question about tennis in the middle of this kids clinic and said I was a pro or something. And then after the clinic, this guy comes up. He was the head pro, Charlie Mandelstam. And he said, would you mind hitting some golf balls? And I thought, but I don't play golf. He said, well, that's okay. Just hit some balls. Hit about 10 balls. He says, how would you like to teach with me? And I said, teach what? And he said, teach golf. I said, but I don't play golf. He said, that's okay. I said, I have 2 kids. They're 7 and 9. That's okay. You'll teach the clinics and they'll be part of it. And they get out of school early. Okay, that's fine. And I have to go back in the summer because that was our agreement with my ex-husband. Okay, no problem. You come back in September and you will be my assistant. And I thought, oh, oh, this is crazy. And I was 40 years old. So I went back to the States and everything, and I, come back, and every week they have fun tournaments with the player, with anybody who played golf in Israel. There's only one course. So I show up early that day, and they said, hurry up, Paul, we need a fourth for this group. And I thought, whoa, I've never played a tournament. I go down the steps, and this older gentleman with a floppy hat says, Paula, would you like to ride with me in the cart? And back then in 1989, we were using pull carts, most of us, and I like to walk. I said, if you don't mind, oh, that's no problem. Halfway down, I notice a cart following us, and I thought, oh, do they keep score for you in golf? I was like saying this to myself. Get to the end of the first hole, and one of the foursome, I knew his name because he was my neighbor. I said, Tony, what's my partner's name? He said, just call him Mr. President. And I go over to the cart, and Chaim Herzog, the current president at that time of Israel, was my golf partner, the one I rejected to go with him. And I thought, oh, no, this doesn't happen. 2 weeks after I show up to be the golf pro, now I play with the president of the country and his group. And we're on one of the last holes walking up the hill, and he turns to me and he said, Paula, how would you like to be part of our regular foursome? Thomas Friedman just left the country after riding from Beirut to Jerusalem, and we'd like you to be our fourth. Now, and this is what happened. I was part of their foursome, and I always wanted to thank Thomas Friedman, but I haven't been able to reach to get a hold of him. But these are the kinds of things that make you wonder why. And the head pro said, Paul, he's never even agreed to play with a woman before. And there was nothing between me. I learned that very young. There was nothing between me and the president, in a romantic way or whatever people might dream up. And I thought, how come this happens? And then people would say, it's you. It's the way you behave. It's the way you are. You're not looking for this to happen to you, but you're putting one foot in front of the other, and you're showing up. And I think it's a lot I think these skills need to be taught very early in life. And this is where I think there is a connection. Not I was born with these skills, but I think that parents, just to put that in there, that parents can make a big difference, and role models. And Charlie, this pro, was a role model for me. He believed in me. And 1 year later, I joined the LPGA as apprentice and worked my way up. And now I'm a life member of the LPGA teaching division. And it all was because of Israel, one golf course, then being able to, really pay attention and have a passion for this game. And my children became very good golfers, and that affected their life too, in a very positive way. So these are my stories, and I'm sticking to them.
Beautiful stories, Paula. And I really like how you said that it's about showing up for yourself. And you may not have the path laid out. And that's the beauty of life. Think about it, how life would be boring. Or if we were to go watch a movie where we knew exactly what was going to happen, nobody would go watch it. We would be done in like 5 minutes. So life is no different. And taking life as an adventure, showing up. So tell us what books you have written, how parents can support their children, and how can people connect with you?
Well, the book that I am part of, that I was asked to write my story, is Finding Life's Passion. This one is in the series, Wake Up, Live the Life You Love. Now, you have to look, it's on Amazon, but you have to look under the top of the series, and then you see 6 or 7 books, and this is the name. And my overnight golf professional story that I wrote is in this book. And that's the only thing I have also started. I started to write a book on raising kids with character and to succeed in life, school and in life. And I got through a part of it, but it isn't out there yet. But I did a lot of interviewing, and I interviewed the children of these kids that actually I used Harvard, since my son, very proud of both of my sons. One went to Harvard and the other went to Brown with no connections and no wealth. And it was I interviewed kids that got in on character. And when we went to look at the school, they said 1/3 of our student body gets in on character. And I thought, yes, it was very interesting to sit there. And my son was next to me, son David. And I said, David, I kind of nudged him, because the character was so important. And I didn't realize that we don't want to hear about kids that did 1 million sports and 1 million activities. And we want to know you were the leader, that you created the opportunity for others to join. And he stuck his neck out when he was the president of the Harvard Student for Israel. And then he was the liaison between the Arab world and the Israeli world here. And it was this part of the combination of exposing them to different nationalities and being able to get along with people of different, faiths and everything else that I think has affected my children and others. And so I was writing the book about others who got in on character. Not great. And boy, their stories are so riveting. And one of these days I've got to get this out. So
I'm sure you'll get it out, Paula. So any last thoughts you might have? And before you share those, where can people connect with you?
Well, the best way is probably on either email, which I, have my email, I think my Gmail account. That's.
Can you read it out?
It's PAD like David, EL 12345 @gmail.com. And I also did a startup, and I'm winding that down because I didn't get funded. I admit to that. I didn't get enough funding. And so in my LinkedIn profile, you'll see it says boomersurf.com, because that was my startup to help people with technology. Now I need help, the boomers, but it's still there, and I still get the information from there. So the LinkedIn, it's possible. My Facebook account is under it's under my name, Paula Brill Adelman. So that's where it differentiates me from there are other Paula Edelmans. And I haven't put a lot of my pictures up, but I like photography, and I have some pictures up on Instagram. But everything is really under my name. And if there's any problem, they can reach out to me with email, and I can steer them in the right direction if they want to really reach out to me for any opportunities that, people have, or questions that, about children or whatever. I'd be happy.
Any last minute thoughts you might have for our audience?
Well, I just think that if people can just believe more in themselves and their goals and what they want to do, I think and the children, not to put them in 1 million activities. Right now, this is very tempting, but I think it's something that we all can improve on the way we present ourselves. And sometimes we don't have patience, and we say, why? Or even learning to breathe. I do the 5-2-7, breathe in 5, hold it 2, and then let it out 7. And I have a hot tub. And I think a lot of these things have helped, and I still swim. And I think that some of these things, as you get older, they keep you younger, and they allow you to keep moving forward no matter what age you are. And I think you have to value your own self-worth and go after the things you are passionate about.
Beautiful. Thank you for joining us, Paula. I enjoyed our conversation. And wonderful audience. It's about showing up. It's about not putting your dreams on hold. It's about building that character. It's about going after your dreams. We talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
So we would love for you to share it out, because we want to build a community where people can live the life they want and they deserve. Thank you, Juan, for making this show technically possible. He's a tech wizard. And be well, take care, and show up for yourself. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for being part of Beyond Confidence with your host, Divya Parekh. We hope you have learned more about how to start living the life you want. Each week on Beyond Confidence, you hear stories of real people who have experienced growth by overcoming their fears and building meaningful relationships. During Beyond Confidence, Divya Parekh shares what happened to her when she stepped out of her comfort zone to work directly with people across the globe. She not only coaches people how to form heart connections, but also transform relationships to mutually beneficial partnerships as they strive to live the life they want. If you are ready to live the life you want and leverage your strengths, learn more at www.divyaparekh.com. And you can connect with Divya at contact@divyaparekh.com. We look forward to you joining us next week.